All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Center for Creativity. My name is Anina Collier. I'm the Dean of the Center for Creativity. If you've been coming this fall, you've likely seen my colleague Cindy. We kind of switch back and forth so that we don't miss all our Saturdays in the fall, but we are so happy that you are here, whether you're in person or you're watching on the live stream. Thank you for joining us for I Can't Photograph. Before I introduce our presenter, just a couple quick things. If you need to use the restroom, they're right here. If you need to get a drink or fill your water bottle, they're right out in that foyer. Immediately after this workshop, we'll do a quick room change, and then we'll have I Can't Sculpt with Waterworks Art Center, and you are very welcome to stick around. We hope you'll join us for that one too. I wanted to let you know about one new program we added this fall. The art exhibit that we have right now is called Please Touch the Art, and it's just like it sounds. Every single piece can be explored through touch, but engages all five senses, even taste, in this exhibit right here. This programming is supported in part by the Tulsa Community College Foundation, and they provided us some funds to bring in a guest artist. I should have mentioned that this exhibit has a special focus on artists and visitors who are blind or visually impaired. And so we're going to be bringing in a woman from Texas named Janetta Price, and she is a spoken word artist, a poet, and a licensed therapist. And so she will be presenting a really engaging poetry workshop that's free to attend, and you don't even have to register. This will be in October, Monday, October 20th at 5:30. And there's more flyers over there where my colleague Ethan and my wonderful daughter Estelle are sitting, so feel free to grab one of those on the way out. I'm really excited for this workshop today. So Shane Brown is a renowned photographer who's based right here in Tulsa. He's a Tulsa Artist Fellow. I met him, years and years ago at Quartz Mountain, which is an arts program we were both part of. He's been a set photographer for all the big movie and TV shows that's been going around town, as well as many, many other projects and initiatives that he'll tell you about. So please help me welcome Shane Brown.
Hi, is this on? Is this on? Okay. Good morning, I'm Shane. Nice to see you all, thanks for coming. I'm just gonna kind of dive into this because we don't have a lot of time. So I'm gonna go through a few slides and just introduce some concepts when photographing, but I assume, judging by the title of the workshop, that a lot of you are just here to learn how to make better photos. How many of you are here with just a smartphone? Okay, how many of you have a camera? Okay, well these concepts apply to either, but I probably will lean a little heavily on smartphone usage and how to get better photographs from that. And I used an iPhone 12, which was the last iPhone with a home button up until about 2 months ago. So I didn't really realize how advanced the cameras are on iPhones, and I'm sure they are on Androids as well. But one thing I think that is a problem with smartphones is that they're usually set to a wide or ultra wide angle lens, which gets a lot of space, and people just kind of go with that setting, and it can really distort space and distance. It exaggerates things, and it's really not the best for like portrait usage or something like that. I mean, are most of you looking to do better portraits of friends and family, things like that? Okay, so what I suggest is getting it off of the wide angle and zooming in a little. Like on my phone, it's got like a 0.5, 1, 2, and then 5, and then I can zoom all the way into like 25 times or something like that, which really starts to digitize the image and doesn't look great. But maybe zooming in 1 or 2 times. But anyway, I'll start going through these images and get to it. And I'll point out with these kind of the concept I'm introducing. These are images from some jobs that I did in mostly 2023. But this photo, for instance, I did with a telephoto lens, which means I was zoomed in. And so that compresses space, and that would pull this willow tree behind this guy into him and create like a nice backdrop. Also, being under the willow tree gave us nice, even light, and that's another thing to consider. Sometimes I think just even flat light is preferable to direct sunlight, but that depends on where you are, where your subject is in relation to the light source, whether it's the sun, a street light, or anything like that. And so this is an example of backlighting. Did any of you watch Reservation Dogs? Yeah, well, this was Bear's mom on the show. Sarah Podemski is the actress' name. Anyway, we just did these downtown for fun one day when we had a day off, but it was late in the day and the sun was low in the sky, and so we just had the sun backlighting her, which gives that nice rim of light. And so that would mean that if, let's say this is the sun, this is Sarah, and I would have been somewhere like here with the sun lighting her in the back. You like my visual aid? Oh, I had a big gold reflector and an assistant to hold it and kind of move it around, and it just really blasted her face with golden light, which that's a little advanced, but these things, sometimes they call them zip discs or just reflectors, but if you go to Bedford, or I don't really know the camera stores in town anymore except for Bedford, but you can buy a reflector. Sometimes they can even be small. They kind of fold up and go into a nice little bag, but that can help illuminate your subject. Because, thanks for asking that question, if I hadn't had that reflector, Sarah's face would have been much darker here. And then I used this one because I did photograph, like this photo of Sarah, I used a telephoto lens, so I was kind of reaching in, and I was using a shallow depth of field. One way to achieve that on a smartphone is to go to the portrait setting, and then the phone kind of automatically does that. I'm not familiar enough with my iPhone and its camera settings right now to know if it's doing what my old phone did in portrait mode, which was kind of automatically blurred the background. But in this case, this is a shallow depth of field, which for those of you using a regular camera, that would be a smaller f-stop number, like a 2.8 or a 4, and then the higher you get, the more the background comes into sharp focus. So for this one, I used a wide-angle lens. I was also elevated, obviously above him a little bit, and just snapped this picture, but I wanted to kind of show that we were on a river and on a boat. We were actually on a boat that this guy made here in Tulsa. Did anybody hear about that? The Seeker? This man in North Tulsa spent years building a ship in his front yard and then had it shipped out to the port of Catoosa and floated it all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. And he's currently living on the ship in the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah, it's crazy. This is another actress from Reservation Dogs. And we just we did this the same day we did the photos of Sarah, and we just found an alley downtown and just went walking around, just looking for cool places to make pictures. But one thing you see here is a little bit of perspective in that we have these lines, like the line created right here, and these lines, and so that gives you a nice scale of distance. And that's another thing to consider is the way you use lines and perspective. It can really, sometimes you can use it to draw attention to your subject or to just make a more dynamic photo. Because if I had walked over, to a more frontal position, then it would just be much more of a static photo with the lines going across the frame rather than creating that kind of dynamic angle. Here's another example of perspective, and I mean, it's somewhat cliche, but this guy was an actual, I'm sure he wouldn't like the word hobo, but he did ride the rails at some point in his life, and so that's why we had him out. We were shooting for a documentary, but I was also taking pictures of him, and so the railroad tracks give a nice sense of perspective. Excuse me. More even light. What I'm using here is this tree to create framing. And so that's another thing to consider is you have someone in a doorway or, again, a lot of photography, successful photographs are considering the composition of the photograph and the way lines fall in the photo, and like I said, they can be static, straight up and down, or across, or they can be angular and dynamic. But it's also nice to look for ways to frame your subject. And so in this case, I just used this tree that was far away. And also here we have even light. Most of these that I've shown so far have been even light. And then just an example of different backdrops that I used with this guy. I was photographing this story about Osage County for Bloomberg, and we just kind of went and walked around his property and found different places. In this shot, I used these small trees up in front as some foreground, and I used a shallow depth of field to put those out of focus, keep him sharp, and then the backdrop is also out of focus. So that really kind of isolates him while I think making a nice composition, something that's a little interesting. So sometimes it's nice, like say I were photographing you, and I could just come down here and frame you with all of this or something like that, thinking that way helps to make better photographs. Here he is out in the field. More pictures of Doug. I have a lot of pictures of Doug in here because I worked on this project for a couple of years and I just kept photographing him. But the way the light is coming in through the windows onto his face is really nice. Getting him not engaging the camera, but he just looks as though he's contemplating what's ahead. That's another thing that you might consider when you're photographing people is that they don't always have to look at the camera or look into the lens. And sometimes the photo is better that way. Maybe I can just pick out a few of these here. More with Doug. More framing. The boat that he built, it also had these dragons on it. Here's another shot of him in front of his house, but I just thought it was cool that this sun decoration, kind of worked as a bit of a halo around him. Riding with this cowboy around Osage County and just kind of like, finding a way to photograph him in his truck that wasn't boring. Not that this is the best photo, but or with his cows and his roll-your-owns. Here's a shot I did. I can't remember what this story was about. It must have been about the Land Run Monument in Oklahoma City because I'm using it as this backdrop for this woman. But that's another thing to consider is like what is showing in the photo, like when you're looking at your phone. Well, another thing, I know that I started in photography in '99, and back then to see this format, I just couldn't have imagined that that's the way we would be looking at the world today, because to me it makes sense like this. So I realized that a lot of my photographs aren't this, and that a lot of you will be making them, in a vertical or what they call portrait orientation, whereas this is landscape. Anyway, you can achieve the same results whichever way your camera is. This woman? No, she was just standing, and I mean, she might have been a little shorter than me, and I had a wide-angle lens in this case, but I didn't get too close, you know? But it's just as if, say, she's standing here, and I just kind of stood here, and I mean, I'll lower a little bit or raise up, you know, depending on how much of the background that I want to show. Oh, they're huge. Yeah. They are huge. Okay. Yeah.
But your other photos, the background is sort of out of focus. How did you achieve that?
With my f-stop. So for this image, I probably would have been at least f5.6, maybe f8. Well, no, I was just on that wide angle and just adjusting my shutter speed and my f-stop accordingly to keep a fast shutter speed, but also to achieve a good depth of field, you know. So it's like if I photographed you at f2.8 with a telephoto lens, these people behind you, they would just kind of be blurry, you know, orbs. But if I photographed you here at f16, everyone through the back would be in focus. You would be in focus, and then these fine people behind you would be in focus as well.
Can you change that on a phone? Can you achieve that on a phone? Because I'm not going to go out and buy.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. They say you can.
You can? Yeah. Okay. Well, I know on my Android,
Here's another example of just positioning your subject, and in this case, I wanted them to be centered. I used a telephoto lens to compress the space and pull these chat piles in behind them. These were taken up in Pitcher, Oklahoma. And then at more of a wide angle to show, you know, more of the landscape, but also kind of throwing them off to the side and kind of minimizing their size to just give the grand scale of the place. Another shot of this guy, Joe, with his cows. And again, he's not engaging the camera, you know, he's looking elsewhere. If you're wanting to photograph a group of people, like I see this a lot, you know, people getting in groups and taking pictures of each other, and it doesn't always show the environment. And for me, showing the environment is like it's really important to me. I do a lot of environmental portraiture because the environment that a person is in can say so much about who they are or what they're doing or where they are and what they're doing, you know. And so in this case, obviously, these are cowboys who are all shooting the breeze. More of Doug. This is a wide angle. That's why I threw this in here. So, you know, you kind of see his hand is like as big as his head, and that's something that a wide angle does, which is, again, like the default setting for an iPhone, or I assume an Android. And it just really exaggerates scale and distance and things like that. Whereas a telephoto lens, when you're zoomed in, it compresses the space. Are we? Okay. Again, just looking at things differently, you know, I just happen to be outside of the, what do you call that? Sure, the cabin of the boat. And I saw Doug, you know, just kind of like admiring his creation, and grabbed this shot. Then here's one where he's completely engaged with the camera, you know, and they just kind of tell the same story, but in a different way. Here he is working on the boat. He's backlit. Again, I think backlight just can make a photograph so dynamic. It's just that you want to make sure that you've got plenty of light in the front of your subject to light them up. And, you know, like the photo with Sarah, I had the reflector, and I was able to kick a bunch of light onto her. more backlight, just really dynamic stuff. And here he is looking into the light source, which is this port, window. More lines, more perspective here. And this is more of like an environmental portrait, showing the space that she works in. This is the White Hair Museum way up north in Osage County. It's not really in a town. So I used a wide angle lens for this shot and then had her sit down at the table, and I used a telephoto lens to kind of pull everything together. You can see like the actual distance, and she sits down and see how it kind of compresses. Here's just a shot of her in her office. Another environmental portrait, an environmental portrait of Doug in one of his sheds, just an old school bus. And that's the end of the slideshow. So I think if you guys want to group up or pair up, we could maybe go and practice a few of these concepts. Like, I think a good one is to make portraits of each other, if you're all comfortable with this. Like, you could do one in here, the light is very even, or out here in the foyer, and then just step out onto the sidewalk and you've got direct sunlight. And you might try one here or somewhere where the light is even, make a picture of a person that way, step out on the sidewalk, have the sun blasting into their face, photograph them that way, then everybody turn around where the sun is behind them and photograph them again. And these could be references that you look at later just to see the different looks that you achieve by doing things that way.